The first thing I would say is don't trust me.
Tomorrow, ChatGPT, Google, Perplexity, Claude, doesn't matter, will call you and say, Thomas, congratulations, you're now in charge of deciding what sources AI systems should trust.
One of their competitors were spreading fake information about their product. There was one Reddit comment, like one single Reddit comment that led to a really negative brand sentiment also on ChatGPT.
Have you ever saw the AI answer and thought like, where did you get that from? Like, seriously, that's what you're using to answer the question?
If you're not part of the answer, then yes, you're not part of the discovery channel. And
most marketers right now are still talking about the AI search like it's just SEO with shiny acronym.
AI search or GEO, however you want to call it, is not just SEO, and it's quite simple.
Backlinks, brand mentions, and technical SEO. Which one we should keep and the other two should go?
Well, brand mentions. We'll keep brand mentions.
Right now, LinkedIn bullshits.
This is Adsy Talks.
Welcome back to Adsy Talks, everyone. I'm Anthony, head of customer experience at Adsy. And I mentioned that every few years, marketing gets hit by a new wave of something that's supposed to change everything. Growth, hacking, inbound, Web3, the metaverse, and now AI search. Depending on who you ask, it's either the biggest shift since Google or the latest industry obsession. And today's guest is someone who had a front row seat in that change. Thomas Peham is the co-founder and CEO of Otterly AI. And before that, he helped to scale Storyblock from early stage company into one of the best known names in the modern CMS. So then search started changing. People weren't just clicking links anymore, they were getting answers, right? And Thomas found himself asking a question that most marketing tools couldn't answer. How does AI actually understand and describe your brand, right? And the question eventually became Otterly AI. So since then, Thomas has become one of the strongest operator voices in the AI search, and that's exactly why I wanted him on this show, on our show, Adsy Talks. So Thomas, welcome to Adsy Talks. It's super great to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be here today.
Mm-hmm. Thomas, as I've mentioned, every few years, marketing invents a new thing that's supposed to change everything. So you've seen enough of those waves, like to be skeptical, maybe. And I want to start with this question. Why did you believe this one? Like, know why it was interesting, know why it was trendy. Why did you think AI search was actually real?
Yeah, I mean, super question, right? Because, I mean, I was pretty much like, I was not driven by the motivation to start my own business. This was not the plan in the first place, but I was driven by this big question, what is going on ChatGPT? So ChatGPT launched in November 2022, right? And back then I led a big marketing team of 30 people, and we were pretty inbound driven, right? As we were a software solution, CMS vendor, as you mentioned, and we were super inbound focused. So I had dedicated team members just doing content. We had agencies just doing SEO, and so on and so forth, right? And I spent lots of money. I spent lots of money on Google for the paid programs, but also on the organic side. And I was really driven back then by this question, well, what is going on ChatGPT? Because I realized as a user, as a consumer of ChatGPT, it's a really cool new platform, right? It's a platform where in the beginning, everybody was hyped about writing poems and generating copy and whatnot. And I was asking myself at some point, well, how do we show up as a brand, and how are we potentially being perceived? And I kind of started asking around in my network, right? I started asking other marketing colleagues in other companies, and everybody kind of told me, well, Thomas, actually, we also don't know what's going on ChatGPT. We also don't know how visible we are, and I guess there was not one aha moment along this way, but there were just multiple multiple aha moments, multiple touch points where I realized, well, I want to do something about it, right? Because I'm a doer, right? I like to do things. I like to build things. I'd like to get creative and get my hands dirty. So I started talking to my former work colleagues who are now my co-founders, and in the beginning we just talked. In the beginning we just brainstormed, and we started hacking away on the weekends. What would later turn into Otterly AI. But to your question, I didn't really challenge that thought in the sense of, is this the next big thing? Is that the next wave or not? I mean, I've been through many different waves in marketing, and just one example, back in 2009, I think it was 2010, I joined an agency and we did lots of Facebook marketing, lots of Facebook apps and whatnot. And back then I was like, oh my God, I'm too late to the whole social media era. And I was like, I mean, back then everybody was asking, do we need a Facebook page? Do we need a Facebook app? And I think the pattern here is these days, or back in 2023, 2024, everybody was asking, do I need to be on ChatGPT? What do we do about it? And I mean, now looking back, it's funny comparing those two waves, but back when we got started, to be honest, I was just busy with that thought, and I wanted a solution. I wanted an answer myself as a user, and this drove me, this motivated us to build something in that space and basically launch Otterly AI in the first place.
That's true. And also, every time when a new technology appears, people start like making rumors about some things. And one of the rumors back in 23, 24 was that people thought that if they gonna feed some specific information to ChatGPT or other AI tools, they will somehow learn from this and start, for example, mentioning the brands. And it was one of the funniest rumors, because I heard that many people started like making conversations with ChatGPT and other AI tools, telling them about their brand, thinking that they will learn from this. So it was so funny, and one of the things that right now are hilarious, but back then they were like rumors. Maybe this is real, maybe not. So yeah, and also, was there a moment where Utterly AI almost didn't happen, like where this looked more like a feature than a company?
Was there a moment where Otterly AI almost didn't happen? Yes, for sure. I mean, in every startup life, there are moments where you challenge yourself. Hey, are we onto the right thing? Are we doing the right things? I mean, we started this as a hobby, as a side hobby, right? We all had full-time jobs, so we didn't have a whole lot of time that we could dedicate to this project. So if I look at the timeline on how we got started, we launched on Product Hunt in, I think it was April 30th, 2024, because back then we were like, let's just ship something, right? We were building this as a hobby, and we were like, we need to prove if this even works, right? We need to validate it. So we put it on Product Hunt, and I mean, now looking back, it was an ugly product. It was a product not really working, but I think it also gave us confidence that suddenly we had 400 users testing it out and giving us feedback. And for me, this was a big milestone, because suddenly we got real people testing and using our product. But then 2 weeks later, so we're talking here April 2024. This was before Google launched AI overviews globally. Back then it was still called, I think, Google Search Generative Experiences, and the LLM was not Gemini, but was called Bard. So, I mean, now I feel like a long time ago, but it was just 2.5 years ago or so. But what I'm trying to say is we launched this on Product Hunt as a pure LLM monitoring solution, and then 2 weeks later, Google launched the AI overviews. So suddenly everybody was like asking, oh, shit, there are now Google AI overviews on top of the organic search results, at least in the United States, right? They started in the United States. So in May, we're like, we need to support that as well, right? We need to find a way to measure what's going on within AI overviews. But quite frankly, we didn't do it for a few months because we were all busy with our jobs, and we were like, is this a real business? Is this going anywhere? We don't know. We don't have paying we didn't have paying customers back then, right? So it was just a product on Product Hunt in a way. So yes, in that time frame, we had those type of questions. Should we pursue that? Should we even rebuild the platform to support Google AI Overviews and all of that? But I think what motivated us was the first user feedback, that people were like, "Oh, this is super interesting. This is creative. I haven't thought about AI monitoring and whatnot." So we we spent a few months just rebuilding, and it was a full-on rebuild of the platform. And then in October 2024, we launched AI Overview support. And this, I think, was a super important inflection moment for us because, one, we got first paying customers, and second, it gave us confidence that we are onto something, right? And then I think it was December, right before Christmas 2024, TechCrunch covered us, gave us a really nice article, and suddenly we even had more users coming to our platform. So by early 2025, we're like, this is a real on business. This is a proper business. We need to quit our jobs. We need to go all in. We need to build out a full on business here. And yeah, that's what we did starting in 2025. But were there inflection moments where Otterly almost didn't happen? For sure. Especially if I look back at those early days where you kind of question maybe yourself, you question, hey, will users pay for this and that? What's the true value of it? While at the same time, people didn't have that awareness of AI search as it is available right now, right? Back in 2024, in the beginning, ChatGPT didn't even have citations, right? So the web search, the reason why we now get referral traffic from ChatGPT, I think that was launched also in November, December 2024. So the whole website side of things, website monitoring, citation tracking, wasn't a thing up until end of 2024, early 2025. So yeah, I think a lot have happened in that time window. And now looking back, I mean, super happy where we are with over 30,000 users on the platform. But in the early days, it's a lot of hustling, it's a lot of learning, lots of talking to users, and lots of questioning yourself. Are we doing the right thing?
Yeah, speaking about that, like of course it's easy to tell afterwards what was successful, about the good stuff. And was there something in the beginning that you guys got completely wrong? Like not about the market, like about the customer, something that you were thinking that they needed, but actually they didn't care about. Like what was there something like this?
Yeah, I mean, for sure there were things that we I think maybe did wrong or maybe focused too much or too little on. I think the first one is, in the beginning, the whole concept of AI search monitoring, LLM monitoring was so fresh, right? So back when we started monitoring the API output, right? Because I mean, there was no AI search interface on Google, so we monitored the pure output from back then Bard, then Gemini. And I mean, what we realized, and I think the market has realized pretty soon after that, but it's still a topic today, is that the pure AI output obviously doesn't reflect the real user output that someone is seeing when going to gemini.google.com and going to chatgpt.com. So this was for us a big learning, a big transformation where we basically built a monitoring solution based on the APIs, but then realized, because our users told us, hey, we don't want to see the API output. We want to see what our customers see when they go to ChatGPT, when they go to Google. So that's where we then totally replatformed the technology, the product, and whatnot. I think that was one learning. Super small learning, pricing and packaging, right? We started out with, we called it keyword tracking because back then we didn't know, do we call it prompt tracking? Do people understand what a prompt is and whatnot? So it was still very much keyword based, and we charged in the early days per keyword. Learning there, marketers don't care about a per keyword pricing. They just want to monitor a whole bunch of keywords, a whole bunch of prompts, and wanna do that on scale, right? So I think our pricing was also wrong in the beginning, and we made some mistakes there on going to the market. But yeah, I mean, looking back, it's always easier to say, hey, we should have done this earlier, or we should have focused more on this and that. It's all a journey. It's all a learning. And as the market was evolving so quickly, for us, one, it was important to keep up with that platform change, right? As I just mentioned, ChatGPT introduced web search, so obviously that was a big part for us to support. Then the whole Google ecosystem became more complicated with Gemini.google.com, with AI reviews. Then AI mode was introduced, and I think it's always a challenge to keep up with those platform changes in a way. But I also tend to think about it from a localization perspective, because when we think about Google, for example, they are not rolling this out globally for all the countries at the same place. So for us, it was always a challenge, let's say, how we educate the market, because just because a user in the United States is seeing AI reviews or AI mode, people in France and Germany have a totally different Google experience. And I think that's kind of part of that journey, or that learning on scaling this globally. We always said we want to scale this globally as a PLG, product-led business. But while you do that, you also have to acknowledge that the experience on Google.com is different for people in different countries.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And also, you've mentioned about the keywords and optimization. And I see that most marketers right now are still talking about the iSearch like it's just SEO with shiny acronym. So, but I think that the shift is like bigger than that. And because people aren't choosing links anymore, they are reading answers first, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know that you've publicly argued that LLM monitoring isn't like actionable. That's LLMAO isn't the right way to think about this. And the future of SEO is about optimizing for the interface, not the model. So I want to talk about this more. Like, what's the industry still measuring that feels smart, but actually tells us like almost nothing about buyers that we really see?
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about a few things, right? One, I think AI search or GEO, however you want to call it, is not just SEO. It's and it's quite simple. It's simple because I would make the point ChatGPT. If we think about ChatGPT, it's a brand channel. It's not a traffic channel. And the reason for that is the interface, the system works differently, right? As a user, I go to ChatGPT, I'll ask a question, I'll have a full-on prompt, and I'm going to get an answer. That's why some call it answer engine optimization, because it's an answer engine and not a search engine. At the end of the day, I tend to think about all of those different channels as discovery and search channels where we as consumers go and we inform ourselves, we educate ourselves. And the big question for us as brands is, how are we getting found on those different channels? And I think the reality is, even if we look at organic Google, it's becoming more of a brand channel in total, right? We're all moving away from optimizing for traffic and clicks, and I think actually that's a good thing, right? Because, and forgive me to say that, I have been in SEO for many years. I wrote my bachelor thesis at university about SEO, but the thing with SEO always was, SEO was never a boardroom C-level conversation. It wasn't that having that attention. And I think the reason for that is because as SEO experts, we always pretty much focused on the website funnel. How can we increase impressions? How can we increase clicks coming to our website? And yes, through that, get hopefully business revenue, leads, or whatever we were seeking for. But now, as AI search came to the picture, we got, I think, the fresh chance of, hey, let's not enter that conversation SEO versus GEO. That's totally the wrong way of framing it. But let's think about it holistically as a go-to-market play. What can we do as a marketing team, as a go-to-market team, in order to be visible, first and foremost as a brand? And how can we influence our brand visibility through our own website content, our website citations, and maybe also some off-page optimization tactics, right? So, long story short, I think AI search is a brand channel, and that's how we should also measure success. We can measure referral traffic coming to our website. We can measure leads coming in through self-reported attribution and the website funnel still, on how many came from ChatGPT. But at the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves, how visible are we as a brand? And I think that's what we want to optimize for in the first place. And if you think about this as a brand channel, I think it's even more comparable to traditional PR, digital PR activities, brand marketing activities than true SEO. And I think the best companies who do this right have realized that this is a marketing play, and we need the different marketing teams all working together: SEO, content, digital PR, and so on and so forth, earned media, in order to improve and in order to do better on AI visibility. But it's not, I think the exciting piece for me as a marketer is this is not just SEO, but it hopefully breaks down all of those silos so we all work better together as different marketing teams and functions.
Yes, and one thing that is interesting for me, you've mentioned about the brand in the AI answers, and if your brand is not inside the answer, can we say that you're basically absent from buying journey right now, like, or not?
I mean, if you're not part of the answer, then yes, you're not part of the discovery channel. And I think obviously every industry, every consumer group and segments have different journeys, and it's definitely getting more complex overall, right? If we think about buyer journeys these days, but yeah, if you're not part of that AI answer as a brand, as a product, then you most likely will be losing out on some business opportunities. And I think the simplest way to get started is to ask your prospects and customers, one, where did you hear about us for the first time, right? Because this will give you an understanding if people find you already on AI answers or not, on which platforms. And for sure, you can also look at referral traffic as one of the indicators to estimate if you're part of the answer, if your website at least is getting cited. But yeah, I think it's much more optimizing for brand than it's much optimizing for website citations, if you will.
I see. And Thomas, I want to ask you this question. You've basically gone from buying marketing software to building one, right? And what's something software founders used to do that annoyed you when you were their customer that you now completely understand?
What software founders did to annoy me as a buyer, as a software buyer? That's a good one. Mm, I I don't know if there's any big one. I think every company has different procurement and buying processes, and I think it depends largely on the scale of the business you're in. Obviously, enterprise sales completely works differently than a more product-led approach. Personally, as a buyer of software, I always like to test the software myself, right? Experience the software. I'm a product geek. That's why we also, in one way, built Otterly AI as a product-led business, right? Where we give everybody the chance to test and use the software before buying it. So I think, to answer your question, and this is a very subjective answer, but what always annoyed me as a buyer is if I didn't get my hands dirty, if I didn't get the chance to test the software I was about to buy, I was about to evaluate. But I also understand it's just a different go-to-market motion. And as we grew in my last company, it was also becoming more sales-led. And nowadays, as I'm building a software, right, I'm building this and in a PLG-led, in a product-led way, because I want others to test it and experience it. But yeah, I think that's how that's maybe one learning that where I'm also realizing as a person, I'm really a product geek, right? And I want to make the products better, and I want to make it available for everyone to test without even speaking to a sales team. You can speak with our sales team. You can book a demo and talk to us, but you don't need to. You can test the software yourself if you want to do that this way.
And speaking about the software, at what point did you realize that you're not building a monitoring tool anymore, but you're making this product? Because when I look at Utterly today, it feels like less like monitoring tool and more like helping customer make decisions. So
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the market has evolved so much, and we have evolved as a product with it. at first it was all about analytics and monitoring, right? Understanding how you perform as a brand, how your website performs on AI. I think that was for us the first big question. And after we solved it for our own brand and for us, we obviously, the next step that comes with it is, what should we do about it? What can we do to improve our visibility? And this is where the optimization piece comes into play. And so yes, we evolved as a platform because we as marketers realized the need for optimization tools, for more actionable insights, and so on and so forth. And our customers realized it as well. And I always say, the way we built the software is, one, by our own vision, by our own belief as marketers, but also from what we hear from our customers, from our community, and so on and so forth. Because, yeah, that's also super important, obviously.
Hmm. And yeah, speaking about the shift, for years, we are all been told you need to own your website, you need to own your content, your audience, own your distribution. And now I feel like something else is happening. The internet is helping define who you are, like not just your website, like not your messaging, like the internet. And what's the biggest gap you've seen between how companies describe themselves and how AI describes the companies right now?
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely, I would say it's about frequency and consistency, right? How consistent are you on page and off page with your messaging, with your positioning, and how frequently are you playing that across the internet, as you put it? So, I mean, the biggest gaps I've seen is just big positioning gaps, right? You talk about yourself in one way, and your customers talk about you on the customer reviews in completely different ways. Same thing with media, right? How are you being described by media, earned media, by other bloggers, influencers, by the internet, if you will, versus how you describing yourself? So I think the biggest gaps that I'm seeing is gaps in messaging, positioning, but also gaps in the content itself. So think about the small stuff. What's people looking for support via ChatGPT, right? Where can they contact you? Even there, you might have maybe outdated content sitting on your website, maybe an outdated phone number, an outdated email address. So I think some businesses, some brands are just realizing that historically they've created more and more content on page. We always were more focused towards new content, more content, expanding our content. And we haven't focused so much on, let's audit our existing content. Let's make our existing content better. Let's make sure that our existing content is updated, is fresh, is accurate. And in the old days with Google, it wasn't so much of a hassle, right? Because your page was just lost on page 2, page 3, wherever. Now with ChatGPT, as a consumer, you easily see in the answer, well, that's an outdated information. That's a wrong information. So fact checking the information you have on your own website is getting super important these days because of that. And the more content you historically published, I think the higher chance there is that content is to some degree outdated or not fully consistent and aligned with how you think about your brand, how you think about the different attributes today. So yeah, I think it's a big one, right? But it all can be summarized as how consistent is your messaging, is your content, and how frequently are you playing that on all the different channels. And I think the brands that succeed the most right now are those who, one, gone through maybe the boring work of ensuring that your content is updated and is consistent, but also do that across the different places. Do that on page, do that on social media. We see a bigger role towards LinkedIn in B2B. LinkedIn is one of the most cited social media sources. YouTube is picking up steam quite a bit. How are you being described in the different YouTube videos does matter. And then earned media, obviously, with lots of focus towards editorial content, super important there as well. I think the thing I would add there is, if you look at ChatGPT, you will definitely also see different sources on ChatGPT than you see on Google. And what's also fascinating to me is, and we're early on with Claude, so if I know for some people in some industries, Claude is like growing like crazy, right? We all build Claude agents and use cases. if you think about Claude is also citing different websites than Google and ChatGPT. So I think the tricky part there is, and it's not making our job easier as marketers, we have to really hone in on, are we optimizing nowadays for Google, for ChatGPT, for Claude? What are those channels? And I think that's just adding complexity. But in a nutshell, yes, it's about consistency and frequency.
Yeah, and speaking about the sources that AI tools use, have you ever saw the AI answer and thought like, where did you get that from? Like, seriously, that's what you're using to answer the question? Because sometimes they can go like very strange directions.
Oh yeah. I mean, yes, I've seen it. I've asked that myself a lot, and I think especially in the early days, right, when ChatGPT launched web search, I think you would see also maybe websites in there that were rather spammy or were rather super small websites. So I think generally speaking, ChatGPT has a tendency towards also citing smaller websites more often than Google. So that surprised me always the most when I saw some spam website getting picked up by ChatGPT. But sometimes it's also the small details, right? You're gonna ask ChatGPT about a certain brand sentiment, and then you get a product description. I remember one conversation with a customer of ours who also operates in the software space, and they were kind of telling me, Thomas, we have this really weird sentiment, this really weird product descriptions on ChatGPT for our product. Why is that? And then we looked at the sources and we realized two things. One of their competitors were spreading fake information about their product. So they had basically an alternative page that was wrong or, let's say, outdated. And second, there was one Reddit comment, like one single Reddit comment that led to a really negative brand sentiment also on ChatGPT. So they kind of realized that this single Reddit comment caused this kind of issue in the ChatGPT answer, which, they didn't expect. I didn't expect.
Yeah, and okay, I want to do something fun here. I will tell you 3 statements, like 3 words, and you need to tell me. You need to keep only one, and the other 2 should disappear. And we will have several rounds on this, and we'll see how it goes. And once you pick one, you need to explain why you think that we should keep this one, and the other 2 should go away. Okay?
Okay, sounds fun. Let's do that.
Yeah. So the first round will be the following: backlinks, brand mentions, and technical SEO. Which one we should keep and the other 2 should go? Backlinks, brand mentions, and technical SEO.
Well, brand mentions. We'll keep brand mentions because brand mentions are the primary metric, primary driver of AI visibility.
That is hard truth nowadays. Yeah. So in the second round, we will have Google rankings, AI citations, and direct traffic.
Oh, I'll keep direct traffic. Because direct traffic is most often the biggest source of traffic coming to many inbound-driven and teams, and it also is influenced, I believe, by organic and AI visibility. So I'll keep direct traffic.
Okay, I will take this one. For the third round, we have the next: company blog, digital PR, and community building.
That's a tough one. I'll probably say digital PR. Just because I've seen it work big times these days.
Mm-hmm. And for the last one, I kept our favorite one. Which one we should keep and the other 2 should go? Reddit, Wikipedia, and YouTube.
Oh, that's a particular tricky one. Reddit, Wikipedia, or YouTube. So, I mean, from a pure numbers perspective, I have to say Reddit, right? Just because Reddit is the most cited website on AI search. Qualitatively, I'm inclined to say Wikipedia because I think many brands are not utilizing Wikipedia as a huge factor, and I'm hoping to see more good Wikipedia strategies in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. And speaking about the Reddit, as I work with businesses, with agencies on a daily basis, I noticed these trends, and for some reasons, Reddit, it was like several several times this happened, but currently Reddit, for some reason, has this new wave of hype. Everyone is talking about Reddit. Everyone is talking how to make SEO on Reddit, how to rank on Reddit. And yeah, even at Etsy, we have this thread in our Slack channel where we talk how to use Reddit to promote as well ourselves as well, and to help our customers. So yeah, it feels like every few years Reddit has this new span of hype where people trying to to
Oh,
use
yeah.
it as a platform for promotion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Reddit expert by any means, but I recently spoke. We hosted our own webinar with Lauren from an agency who really runs great Reddit strategies, and I think the comment I would make is, we as marketers, we shouldn't mess up Reddit. We need to think about Reddit as a community platform, right? And treat it like that. And yes, we can think about having our own subreddits and activating our employees. But I I think the biggest mistake we can make is to see Reddit as a place where we just go and spread our marketing message. That doesn't work, right? It is a community driven platform. It always has been and will be. And I think there are some good Reddit strategies and do's and don'ts that are possible for us as brands to insert ourselves into the conversation, but it has to be community led first and foremost.
Yeah, but I think like it's something that a lot of platforms go through. Almost every social media platform usually starts with from community, and if done right, like if they succeed, they usually turn into this like big places where brands and people trying to promote themselves and try to do all the marketing. So yeah, like it's sad, but it's true. And Thomas, I wanted to ask you like one thing that I've heard you said. You've publicly said I was wrong. So most marketers rather die than admit this. And what's the biggest thing that you've changed your mind in the last year when you were certain about something and now you understand that it was wrong?
So, from an AI search perspective, I was probably wrong with many things, but the statement you referred to was particularly around YouTube because, and I think it's just the nature these days, right? How fast those platform changes. But I think it was November last year, 2025. I basically said, you don't need to care about YouTube if you think about your AI search strategy and also in particularly ChatGPT, right? And I said that publicly. I said that on a webinar. I said that in LinkedIn posts that you don't need to care about YouTube. But then something happened, and we started noticing more and more citations and website references on ChatGPT going towards YouTube. And now fast forward 6 months, June 2026, YouTube is amongst the most cited platforms. It is actually, after Reddit, if you will, the second most cited social media user-generated platform on ChatGPT as well. And I was definitely wrong because the platform changed, right? And the platform changed rather quickly. And I think if I'm learning one thing, then the message is the things that might be true today might not be true in 3 months. And I think that's also the hard truth about marketing strategies and budgets these days, right? Because most often our budgets are set annually, and we have probably quarterly business reviews on adjusting that. But since, in particularly the last 2 years, the AI search platforms evolved so much and so quickly, I think realities and truths can be changed basically on a monthly basis. And YouTube was one example. There were other examples where I was wrong. I think, about the llms.txt file. I was a big advocate in the beginning, realized later on that there's no impact. There's hardly any impact on AI visibility. So I admitted that. And I think we're still learning a lot, right? We're also, from an on-page perspective, that's the reason why we experiment a lot. I have one colleague just running SEO and GEO experiments these days because we want to prove what works and what doesn't work right now. And we are learning a lot, be it around schema markups. Are they working? Are they helping with ChatGPT visibility or not? Markdown versus HTML, one of the latest interesting experiments. Localization, big topic, I think, since ChatGPT started out as a rather non-localized product. So if you would be in Germany asking something, you would get lots of US citations, lots of US content. You still get that today, don't get me wrong, but it has changed a lot. And so it's not easy for me personally to keep up. I'm trying my best to keep up with that, but I can't imagine how it must be for other marketers who are trying to keep up with all of those changes. So yeah, I can tell you many, many more things I was wrong about, but yeah, these are the top things that come to my mind, I guess.
Yeah, you're really good at it, because I think like it's not bad to admit that you're wrong. It's worse not to. So it's
Yeah.
worse to be sure in something and never change your mind. It's like it's the losing tactic. So yeah, but
Yeah.
it was really interesting to listen to these stories. And you mentioned previously about LinkedIn. So it's one of the trendy platforms right now. What's something that gets rewarded on LinkedIn right now that can be easily punished in reality? So you know that there is a term right now, LinkedIn bullshit. So something that sounds smart, something that sounds like good tips and tricks and hacks, but in reality, it doesn't work, and it can even make it worse. So,
Well, if you if you ask me about my comments on the LinkedIn hype or the hype that's going on LinkedIn, I'm not a fan of that, right? I think there's just too much hype in all directions going on. LinkedIn, I think, is one of those bubbles where we as marketers, we as people go and like to rave about and position ourselves as people. And I don't like that part, right? I'm not an ego-driven person, but I don't like that part. Seeing that on LinkedIn, on the experts selling the magic and selling the tricks. I don't think there are any tricks or yeah, hacks, if you will. So I don't like that being spoken about on LinkedIn. In general, I think LinkedIn is a really fascinating social media platform. I love LinkedIn in general myself, and I'm excited about seeing it also get picked up more and more by the different AI search engines. And I think the reason for that is generally LinkedIn is a very public space, right? So most often profiles are public, posts are public, LinkedIn pulse articles are public, meaning these are content pieces, written content pieces that can easily be crawled by the different AI crawlers and also obviously Google itself as well. So yeah, I think what I do personally is I'd like to share my personal stories in a non-ego driven way because that's how I am as a person, and I encourage us as a company to share some behind the scenes, to share some content that we believe our customers find valuable on LinkedIn, and we'll see that also being picked up on AI search engines these days. But in general, when you just look at the hard data, Pulse content is being referenced the most right now on AI search engines across the board, right? ChatGPT, Google, etc., etc., and personal profile posts. Fascinating enough, company profiles, company posts are not really a thing on AI search. We're currently diving deeper why this is the case. I think it's also like a quantity game to some degree, but I think the best thing if you can do for your own AI search strategy is encourage your employees to share authentic, real stories, cut out all the fluff, cut out all the bullshit, and share real stories, share real content through posts and pulse articles.
that's a really interesting take on this. And yeah, speaking about the experiments, because I hear that everyone recommends to run experiments to see how it reacts. So a lot of people are running experiments, but the problem is that half of these experiments, they may contradict each other. And how do you personally decide when you found a signal versus when you found it just a coincidence?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes back to the experiment design, and I think you have to be very careful and very, very specific on how you design an experiment, right? I'm not a scientist by any means, but when we run experiments, or when my colleague in particular runs experiments, we always try to isolate one factor, right? We wanna isolate one factor. We wanna A/B test at least, or we run certain variations at the same time. Meaning, the thing that comes to my mind, for example, was a recent experiment where we ran on an image experiment. We wanted to understand if, for example, file names are being picked up as a factor for ChatGPT, if alt tags on images are being picked up, if caption tags on images are being picked up. So the way we did that experiment in order to isolate out all the factors was we created actually 6 different versions of landing pages. On each landing page version, there was one specific factor that changed. All the other factors were the same, right? So we could isolate that it all comes down to this one factor. And then we ran this isolated experiment for a well set of time across all the different AI engines, so we can make sure if we see different outcomes there, it goes back to this one variable. So yeah, I think the better that experiment is specified and designed, the better you can judge the outcome. Obviously, we do different correlation studies. We have different scientific models depending on the industry running behind that. We also team up with real scientists and PhDs for some of those experiments to also validate that externally. But that's kind of how I think about GEO experiments. Sometimes it's not easy to isolate it to one factor, right? Because obviously also platforms change and whatnot, but we'll do our best to isolate it always down to one variable, so we can then share the results on how this one variable impacted, for example, citation data, how it impacted the visibility on the brand side, etc., etc.
Speaking about the results, have you ever published the research and then realized that it wasn't the conclusion wasn't actually correct?
Have we ever published something where the conclusion was not correct? No, I don't think so, because whenever we realize that the conclusion is not correct, we don't publish it. So I'm not recalling any published piece where I think the conclusion was incorrect. We do have a couple of examples where we never published it because there was no conclusion, or it was basically inconclusive. So yeah, no, I don't recall any published experiment where we kind of were wrong in the first place.
I see. Okay, that's good. And also, here's you another scenario. Let's imagine that tomorrow, ChatGPT, Google, Perplexity, Claude, doesn't matter, will call you and say, Thomas, congratulations. You're now in charge of deciding what sources AI system should trust. What's the first thing that you'd stop trusting?
Oh, that's a tough one, because I've never asked myself that question that Google or Claude or whoever is calling and asking me that. I think that the first thing I would say is don't trust me, right? I don't think one human being should decide over what to trust and what not to trust. I think the job is too big for such a big decision, right? Which sources to trust and what not to trust. The reason I'm saying this is from a very, how do you say, if you think about culture and cultural values, every culture has different values, right? Humans have different taste, right? There's taste. What's the definition of taste? What's the definition of trustworthy, not trustworthy? And for sure, you can come up with hard factors on what's trustworthy and what not. But I would say I don't want to answer that question in the first place as a human being, because I obviously have a certain cultural background and other people have other different backgrounds, and it has to be, all of that has to be taken into consideration when deciding on what are trustful sources and what not. I acknowledge is a super, super tricky job, right? And you can even think about it in the sense of, one, a lot of those LLM models in itself are driven from companies with certain biases, I would say, right? They're when you take a look at the location of the headquarters of the different LLMs, obviously they have certain biases, Western, Eastern, whatever, right? So I think overall it's a super hard job. It's not easy to decide on what to trust and what not. Second, the second thing that comes to my mind, right, is, and we just published this also as a study, if you go to our blog, where we looked at gender gaps, for example, the different sources and citations. Because the reality is, in particularly when you think about LinkedIn, when you think about the LinkedIn, like the sources that are cited from LinkedIn.com, it is very male driven. So even if you ask about who are the female experts in a particular industry, you get lots of males getting recommended. Why is that? Why are some engines recommending that more than others, right? I don't know. I don't have the behind the scenes look at all the models, but I think that's just one challenge that I'm seeing, right? Where don't ask me as a person. We need to ask ourselves as a community on how to approach this.
Usually it gets philosophical because when we
Sure.
start digging that far, it all becomes very philosophical. And one of the favorite terms that SEOs like to use is like, it depends. So it all depends.
Yeah, I mean, we all have a job, right? And we all have I guess, a say in this as well. And we all can influence it. But ultimately, it goes back to this philosophical question: how much should be controlled versus not controlled? And at the end of the day, the LLMs were most often trained on content on the internet, if you put it simply, right? And that content itself has certain flaws and has certain biases itself, right? So I guess that's just the philosophical question to have it. But yeah, I'm definitely not the expert to have that conversation with.
Yeah, that's true. I understand that, but it was interesting, like to look into that direction. Also, one of the things I want to talk with you about today is about like the workflows, the team design, and the dashboards. Let's say if you were about like rebuilding the modern search dashboard from scratch, what would you remove first? Like, and what will take its place? For example, we have brand mentions, we have citation share, prompt coverage, direct traffic, sales calls, evidence, branded search. What are the metrics that you actually trust?
What are the metrics I actually trust? I pretty much, as a business leader, as a marketing leader, I look at brand visibility on the different AI search engines. That's the main thing I trust. And ultimately, I look at self-reported attribution. How many leads, how many prospects enter our website funnel through the different AI search engines. Those are the two main metrics I'll trust and I'll always like to have there, because on the one hand side, it tells me how directionally we are performing from a revenue perspective, and it tells me how we are performing from a brand perspective.
How do you prove the value when the user like may never even click on the AI answers, but he will still remember the brand, he will come back later and maybe
Yeah.
even buy something like something. So
Well, how do I prove the value? It right now, I think it can only be proven through two direct options. And the one direct option is self-reported attribution. The other option is people who convert on my website coming from referral traffic from the different AI models. Those are the two direct ways I can prove business impact. The indirect way to prove business impact is to correlate agent traffic, how much agent traffic is coming from the different websites, but also correlate indirect, like direct traffic, branded traffic coming to my website. Because at the end of the day, I really believe that, yes, ChatGPT, for example, is a brand channel. Someone finding my brand, my product on ChatGPT might come back eventually through direct or organic channels, but those are just indirect ways of proving business success right now. Who knows what's to come in the next few years? We see, for example, just the latest update from OpenAI in May, that more and more brand names are also now hyperlinked. So we'll also have links, which also means a higher click-through rate, which also means more direct referral traffic from ChatGPT coming to our websites. But yeah, as said, right, who knows? But these are the direct and indirect ways on how I'm improving AI search business impact right now.
no, that's really interesting. And also, I was thinking that you recently launched public API, a cloud skill, a marketplace of AI search workflows. Is that
Yeah.
a signal that AI visibility data can't stay trapped in dashboards anymore? And it has to move into the workflows and even agents?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think the biggest challenge we as marketers historically had is that SEO data was most often trapped in a silo, right? we had SEO in our SEO data in our search analytics tools, and then we had CRM data in our CRMs, and we maybe had, in the best case, some Looker Studio dashboard and some Power BI dashboards where we connected those. But most often, data was very siloed, and that's the exciting piece about the time we live in, where with the help of APIs and MCPs, you can not only connect the different data points, but you can do better marketing because of that, right? Meaning diving deeper into the analytics, be it in your cloud, running an Otterly MCP together with a SEMrush Ahrefs MCP together with HubSpot as an MCP. Suddenly you can really build cool personal stuff that you need to answer right now in your business based on all of those data sources. And I love that as a marketer, and I think in some way it's super exciting for us because it's merging the different silos into one cohesive dashboard, one cohesive way each individual business needs to report or wants to report on. That's why we launched the marketplace. That's why we launched the MCP server and the API, because we wanna open up ourselves as much as possible and allow our customers to use our data in all the crazy and creative ways they want to use us to do, at the end of the day, better as a marketing team and do better as a business.
And do you think like the next generation of search tooling will be asking an agent like, where are we weak? What changed? What should we fix this week?
That's already happening right now, yes. I mean, we already having that in place, right? And that's definitely the reality. And I think if I think about the analytics layer, right, it's getting more personalized. It's getting more chat-based. Yes, we can have a conversation with the different bots and through our Cloud MCP or ChatGPT apps. But I tend to think about analytics in two ways. One, there's always a place for static reporting. We all have business reporting in place, be it a monthly reporting, quarterly reporting, weekly reporting, where we as a business aggregate certain data layers and report that back to our C-level, to our investors, to our teams. That will, to some degree, always be static and will be following a certain template, let's say, a certain approach. But then on the flip side, what the new reality is, let's call it the API first, the headless analytics layer, is we can chat with our data so much easier these days and can answer pressing business questions we have, can answer certain questions to identify certain gaps, etc., etc. And I think right now we're seeing this ad hoc reporting, let's say, as the big eye opener, right, for all of us. Oh, how cool is it to chat with our data, to combine the different data sources? But I'll think we'll see much more use cases in the future there. But that's how I would separate like static reporting that will continue, that will live in certain dashboards, in certain reports, that PDFs, whatever the format is. And at the same time, well, we do have access already to all of those data points through a chat interface.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about working like with all the data, if you had to build an in-house team of AI visibility, who will which team will own it? Is it SEO, content team, brand, product marketing, PR, or the whole point is not a single team can own it alone? How do you think?
Yeah, I love that question because I ask that question to our customers regularly, and I think so. My best practice would be AI search is a marketing channel, right? So it has to be, ultimately it is a CMO, head of marketing topic, right? It has to, if it's a priority in your business, it has to be owned ultimately from a KPI business success perspective by the marketing leader in your organization. Who are the driving forces? Yes, it is pretty often from an implementation playbook perspective SEO-led, because I think historically, if you have already done SEO efforts and things in the past and you do well there, it obviously impacts your AI visibility as well. So that's why I think many SEO teams are in the driving seat of the AI visibility playbook right now. But it definitely needs, as a sparring, someone on the content side. It needs, depending on your setup, tech involved, right? IT tech involved. It needs PR, branding involved. So I see this right now not as one, how do you say, as one Formula One car where just one person is in the driving seat, but I'll see this as maybe as a camping bus where the head of marketing is driving it and then is having the different practitioners sitting next to him and her.
Yeah, that's actually like a really clever take on this idea. Okay, Thomas, and like for the end, I prepared the last like entertainment bit for you, and yeah, I hope that it will be really like insightful and interesting. I will call it still true or dead idea. I will read you statements, and I want you to give a short answer, like is it still true or dead idea, and like explain why, like in short. Like it's really interesting to see how you perceive it, how you think. So if you're ready, I can start.
I'm ready.
So the first statement is rankings are still the main KPI. Is it still true or dead idea?
It's a dead idea. It's a dead idea because rankings do not matter as in its traditional form for ChatGPT. And even if we think about the Google interface, at the end of the day, I never cared about rankings. I cared about traffic and conversions in the first place from an SEO perspective.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next one would be more content is usually the answer.
Usually it's not the answer because most often there is already enough content sitting in most organizations and websites, and better content, I think, is the better answer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. The next one, API monitoring is enough.
Is not enough. It's about search monitoring as API output doesn't reflect the real user interface.
Mm-hmm. And this one will be about our recent talk about trendy platforms. Reddit is optional.
Yes, in some markets and in some countries.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay, I will take this one. The next one is brand mentions without clicks are basically worthless.
No, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Why?
If you believe the topics you're monitoring, and if you believe your audience are researching those topics and queries, then you have a new shopping window where you can position your brand in front of your potential customers. So I don't think that's worthless if that's the case.
Okay, that's good. And the next one is GEO is just SEO renamed.
I mean, in literally it is just renamed SEO, turned into GEO. But as mentioned earlier, GEO is not just SEO. So the whole conversation, I'm annoyed about the whole conversation. Is it just the same? Is it not? Because it's not the same. We're looking at different user journeys. We're looking at different platforms and they all behave differently. So GEO is not just SEO.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the last one I want you to finish. I will start it and I want to hear like the way how you finish this one. A brand starts winning AI search when
they take it serious and when they have a clear commitment towards brand, the role of brand in their marketing play, and start testing, start executing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I will take that. Thank you very much. In this case, close it like this. My biggest takeaway from our today's conversation is that visibility is no longer just about like being present there in a list of links. It's about whether your brand is clear enough, trusted enough, distributed enough to be pulled into the answer itself, right? So if that sounds harder than all SEO, maybe it probably is, right? But also it sounds more honest maybe because before that, SEO was about optimizing, and everything. But right now, it's maybe more about actual people who are using the internet, who are searching for your brand. So, Thomas, thank you very much for joining Adsy Talks. It was a pleasure to talk to you, to hear your insights, your stories. And for everyone who is watching us or listening to us, shoot a comment. What matters more now, like the click or being a part of the answer before the click happens. So thank you very much, everyone, for the time. Thank you, Thomas. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This is Adsy Talks.